The emergency beacon screamed across 17 star systems with a sound that made grown aliens weep. Deep in the Galactic Council chambers, 3 very different species stared at data that should not exist. The numbers were wrong. Everything was wrong. Counselor Bright Echo of the Helix spoke first, her crystalline body flashing red warning colors. The Epsilon mining colony reports complete system failure. Their quantum reactors are creating cascade reactions through the planet's core. The Drift Collective representative, a being of living gas contained in a shimmering field, pulsed with alarm. Our calculations show the destruction will spread to 3 neighboring systems. 17 billion lives are at risk, Swarm Speaker 900 clicked rapidly, translating for her insectoid companions. The colony world will explode within 48 standard hours. We must begin immediate evacuation procedures. Riley Brooks sat quietly in the corner, reading reports on her tablet. The human representative looked tired, like someone who'd been dealing with paperwork all day. She wore a simple blue uniform with coffee stains on the sleeve. This is unprecedented, Bright Echo continued, her light patterns growing more frantic. Never in galactic history have we faced such a crisis. The mining equipment has created quantum instabilities that are literally tearing reality apart. Our best scientists estimate it will take 6 months just to understand the problem. The Drift Collective began expanding and contracting rapidly, a sign of extreme stress. We need every available ship for evacuation. Every transport in 3 sectors must be mobilized immediately. Riley looked up from her tablet. Actually, we can probably fix that for you. The chamber fell silent. Translator devices hummed, trying to process what the human had said. Surely there was an error in translation. Fix. Bright Echo's crystal structure flickered in confusion. Human Riley, I do not think you understand the scope of this emergency. Quantum cascade reactions cannot be fixed. They can only be contained, and barely. Riley shrugged. We had something similar happen in Louisiana back in 2098. Different technology, same basic problem. Our emergency response division should be able to sort it out pretty quickly. 900's clicking became agitated. This is not some minor industrial accident. This threatens multiple star systems. Yeah, sounds like a Tuesday to us, Riley said, already typing on her tablet. I'm sending the coordinates to Captain Parker's team. They just finished dealing with that solar flare situation near Alpha Centauri. The aliens exchanged glances that roughly translated to shared bewilderment across species barriers. Bright Echo dimmed to a worried blue. Human Riley, your species has been in space for only 2 centuries. This type of crisis requires the combined knowledge of civilizations that have existed for millions of years. Riley paused her typing. Look, I get that this seems scary to you guys, but humans deal with extinction-level events pretty regularly. Remember Hurricane Katrina? That was just weather, and it nearly took out half a continent. Then there was Chernobyl, where our own technology nearly poisoned a quarter of Earth. The 2089 Australian wildfire crisis burned for 3 years straight. Those were natural disasters. The Drift Collective pulsed. Weakly. Chernobyl wasn't. And we figured out how to fix that too, eventually. Riley went back to her tablet. The point is, we've been dealing with impossible situations our whole history. This quantum cascade thing sounds bad, but we've seen worse. Swarm Speaker 900's clicking slowed to a confused rhythm. How can you be so calm? This threatens entire civilizations. Because getting panicked doesn't help anyone, Riley replied. Earth's Emergency Response Division exists specifically for situations like this. We've got teams trained in quantum stabilization, dimensional containment, and reality anchor deployment. Pretty standard stuff. The 3 alien counselors stared at the human in disbelief. Bright Echo's light patterns shifted to colors that had no translation in human language, roughly meaning existential confusion mixed with terror. Standard? The Drift Collective whispered, its gaseous form barely holding together. Riley's tablet chimed. Great. Parker's team can be there in 18 hours. They're bringing the usual equipment. Quantum dampeners, reality stabilizers, and some of those new dimensional patch kits the engineering boys cooked up last month. Dimensional patch kits? 900 clicked weakly. For fixing holes in space-time. We've been using them since the Yellowstone incident. Riley stood up and stretched. Look, I know this seems like a big deal to you folks, but try not to worry. My people have this handled. As Riley walked toward the exit, Bright Echo called after her. What if your team cannot fix this problem? Riley paused at the door. Then we'll try something else. Humans are good at improvising. Besides, if everything goes wrong, it's still just Tuesday on Earth. We've got 17 other crisis teams dealing with other problems right now. The three aliens sat in stunned silence as the human left. Outside, evacuation alarms were already sounding across 3 sectors and billions of beings prepared to flee their homes. Inside the council chambers, 3 of the galaxy's oldest and wisest species tried to comprehend how anyone could treat universal catastrophe as routine maintenance. Bright Echo's crystals dimmed to their darkest setting. Perhaps we should observe these humans work. The Drift Collective condensed into a tight, worried ball. If they fail, we will all die. And if they succeed, 900 clicked slowly. We may need to reconsider everything we thought we knew about crisis management. 20 minutes later, while alien fleets mobilized across the galaxy in the largest evacuation effort in recorded history, 3 small human ships quietly slipped into hyperspace, carrying 50 people and enough confidence to face down the end of the world. The Epsilon mining colony looked like hell had opened up and decided to redecorate. Massive cracks split the planet's surface, glowing with unstable quantum energy that made reality shimmer and bend. The atmosphere had turned a sickly green color that burned through most breathing apparatus in minutes. Gravitational waves pulsed randomly, crushing spacecraft that came too close and flinging debris across the system. Commander Sam Parker floated in his ship's observation deck, sipping coffee from a magnetic cup, while studying the disaster through reinforced windows. Behind him, his team was unpacking equipment with the casual efficiency of people who had done this many times before. "Well?" Parker said to his second-in-command. "It's definitely Tuesday." Chief Engineer Ana Rodriguez joined him at the window, carrying a clipboard and looking mildly annoyed. "The quantum reactors are definitely the main problem. They're pumping unstable energy directly into the planet's core, creating cascade failures in the local space-time matrix." "Scale of 1 to 10, Parker asked. "About a 6, maybe 7 if those gravitational pulses get worse." Parker nodded. "Remember the Denver situation?" "That was an 8, Rodriguez agreed. "This should be manageable." Outside their ships, the largest evacuation fleet in galactic history struggled against conditions that killed most species in minutes. Helix crystal ships were fracturing from the unstable quantum fields. The Drift Collective's gas ships kept dispersing when gravitational waves hit them. Swarm vessels lost coordination and flew into each other as their hive mind connections broke down under quantum interference. The 3 human ships moved through the chaos like they were navigating morning traffic. Their hulls showed scorch marks and dents from previous missions, but they flew steady and true toward the planet's surface. "Sir," called pilot Alex Chen from the navigation station, "we're getting multiple distress calls from the evacuation fleet. 17 ships have been destroyed in the last hour, and the aliens are requesting immediate assistance." Parker finished his coffee. "Send them our standard emergency protocols and tell them to stay back about 50,000 kilometers. This is going to get messy before it gets better." On the planet's surface, chaos reigned. The mining colony's 40,000 workers represented dozens of species, all panicking in their own unique ways. The Helix refugees had grown jagged and sharp from stress, accidentally cutting each other when they moved. The Drift Collective members were spreading thin, losing their individual consciousness as fear made them disperse. The swarm workers had lost all coordination and were running in random directions. Environmental specialist Lisa Wong stepped off the human transport wearing nothing but a standard environmental suit, breathing apparatus that looked like it came from a garage sale, and a backpack full of Earth bacteria cultures. "Atmospheric composition is definitely toxic," she reported over the radio, "but nothing worse than what we dealt with during the Mexico City cloud incident. I'll have breathable air restored in about 6 hours." She began releasing modified bacteria into the atmosphere while walking calmly through conditions that were dissolving alien equipment on contact. The bacteria, originally developed to clean up industrial accidents on Earth, immediately began converting the toxic compounds into harmless gases. Meanwhile, Rodriguez had already identified the main quantum reactor facility. The building was partially phased out of normal reality, flickering between dimensions as unstable energy tore holes in space-time. Most species couldn't even look at it without experiencing severe psychological trauma. "Frank?" Rodriguez called to demolitions expert Frank Turner. "We're going to need some controlled explosions to relieve the pressure buildup in reactors 4 through 12. Turner was already loading shaped charges designed for asteroid mining operations. Nuclear or conventional? Let's start with nuclear. This quantum instability reminds me of the situation we had with the Yellowstone supervolcano. Same basic principles, different energy source. Copy that, Turner replied, arming devices that could crack planets, setting up a standard pressure relief pattern. The alien observers, watching from what they considered a safe distance, could not comprehend what they were seeing. The humans were not just working in conditions that should instantly kill them. They were treating the situation like routine maintenance. They walked through quantum distortions that broke reality itself, breathed toxic air that dissolved metal, and calmly discussed using nuclear weapons to fix problems that alien. Science considered theoretical impossibilities. Counselor. Bright Echo's crystal structure was flickering rapidly with distress patterns. They are going to destroy everything. Nuclear weapons near quantum instabilities will create chain reactions that could tear apart the fabric of space itself. The Drift Collective had condensed into a tight, terrified ball. This is madness. No species can survive in those conditions. Swarm Speaker 900 was clicking in rapid, panicked bursts. Our instruments show that the human life signs remain stable. How is this possible? Parker's voice came over the communication channel, calm and professional. Epsilon Control, this is Human Emergency Response Team Alpha. We've identified the primary problem sources and are implementing standard containment procedures. Expect some minor seismic activity in the next hour as we relieve core pressure. Minor seismic activity? Bright Echo's crystal structure nearly shattered. They are discussing planetary engineering as if it were plumbing repair. Down on the planet, Turner's nuclear charges detonated in carefully calculated sequences, releasing pressure from the planet's core with precision that would have impressed Earth's top geological engineers. The explosions created temporary rifts in space-time, but Turner had positioned them to channel the energy safely away from populated areas. Wong's bacteria continued their work, transforming the deadly atmosphere into something resembling breathable air. The green toxic clouds gradually shifted to a cleaner blue-gray, while oxygen levels began rising toward normal ranges. Rodriguez, meanwhile, had entered the quantum reactor facility by simply walking through the dimensional distortions as if they were revolving doors. Her instruments, designed for dealing with Earth's dimensional anomalies, quickly identified the problem sources. Parker, she reported, the quantum matrix is destabilizing because someone tried to force inject antimatter into a standard fusion reaction. Basic engineering error. Give me 20 minutes to recalibrate the containment fields. Copy that, Anna. Any special equipment needed? Just the standard quantum toolkit. This is pretty straightforward, simpler than the Tokyo dimensional rift we fixed last month. As the first hour passed, the impossible began to happen. The gravitational pulses steadied. The toxic atmosphere cleared. The reality distortions around the reactor facility began to stabilize. The alien evacuation fleet watched in stunned silence as 50 humans accomplished what their greatest scientists had declared impossible. The humans worked with the casual competence of people who face the end of the world every Tuesday and had developed reliable procedures for dealing with it. Parker checked his watch. Right on schedule. We should have this wrapped up by lunch. 3 hours into what the aliens had called an impossible crisis, Frank Turner was having the time of his life. He stood at the edge of a quantum fissure that was literally eating pieces of reality, calmly calculating blast patterns while munching on a sandwich his wife had packed that morning. You know, he said to his radio, this reminds me of that job we did redirecting the asteroid cluster toward Luna Base. Same basic principle, apply the right amount of explosive force at the correct vector to redirect unstable energy. The quantum fissure in front of him was 20 meters wide and growing, consuming matter and spitting it back out as pure energy. Most species would have fled the continent. Turner was setting up shaped nuclear charges to collapse it in a controlled manner. Frank, Rodriguez's voice crackled over the radio. The reactor core is stabilizing, but we've got 7 more quantum tears opening up across the southern continent. Can you handle multiple simultaneous detonations? Already on it, Turner replied, pulling out a device that looked suspiciously like a modified smartphone. Remote detonation system, synchronized timing, and enough firepower to crack a moon. This is actually easier than the Yellowstone job. At least these fissures aren't moving around. He pressed several buttons, and nuclear explosions bloomed across the planet's surface in a carefully orchestrated symphony of destruction. Each blast collapsed a quantum tear, sealing rifts in reality with the casual precision of someone patching holes in a roof. The alien observers nearly suffered collective nervous breakdowns. Bright Echo's crystal structure was flickering through emergency colors so rapidly that her translator systems couldn't keep up. They are using nuclear weapons to repair space-time itself. This violates every known law of physics. Meanwhile, Lisa Wong was dealing with what she considered a fairly standard atmospheric restoration job. The toxic gases had been neutralized by her bacteria, but now the planet was experiencing severe weather patterns as pressure systems readjusted. Hurricanes the size of continents were forming, with wind speeds that could strip flesh from bone. Wong stood in the middle of a Category 6 hurricane, taking atmospheric readings while debris flew around her at supersonic speeds. Her environmental suit was designed for Earth's gravity storms, so the mere planetary-scale weather barely registered as an inconvenience. "The atmospheric composition is much better now," she reported cheerfully. "Oxygen levels are up to 18%. Toxin levels are down to acceptable ranges, and the weather should calm down once the pressure systems equalize. I'm releasing some cloud-seeding bacteria to help with the storm management." She tossed several small containers into the hurricane winds. The bacteria, genetically modified from Earth organisms that thrived in extreme weather, immediately began nucleating water droplets in patterns that would gradually dissipate the massive storms. Pilot Alex Chen was handling what he privately ranked as a Tuesday-level flying challenge. The gravitational anomalies around the planet were creating distortion fields that crushed most spacecraft into metallic paste. Alien evacuation ships were being destroyed faster than they could retreat to safe distances. Chen flew rescue missions through the distortions like he was navigating Earth's notorious gravity storm corridors. His ship, built to handle the dimensional turbulence around Earth's poles, danced through gravitational fields that bent space itself. Rescue Shuttle Charlie 7 to Helix Transport Beta 9. Chen transmitted while pulling 6 Gs in a turn that should have liquefied his internal organs. "I've got your survivors. Recommend you maintain distance of at least 60,000 kilometers until we get these gravity wells stabilized." He had 17 alien survivors packed into his cargo bay, all suffering from various degrees of gravitational trauma. To Chen, this was routine. He'd flown similar missions during the Great Pacific Gravity Storm of 2094, when Earth's magnetic field had hiccuped and created localized gravity anomalies that swallowed entire cities. Back in the quantum reactor facility, Rodriguez was discovering that alien engineering had some fundamental design flaws. The quantum containment systems were built with what humans would consider excessive safety margins, which actually made them more dangerous when things went wrong. The problem is they over-engineered everything, she explained to Parker while literally standing inside a quantum reaction chamber that was phasing in and out of existence. When you build quantum containment with too many safety systems, they all try to activate at once during a crisis. It's like having 50 different emergency brakes on a car. They just jam everything up. She began systematically disabling safety systems that were making the situation worse, using techniques developed during Earth's transition to quantum power in the 2080s. Each disabled safety protocol actually made the reactor more stable, which violated every principle of alien engineering. "How are you still alive in there?" Bright Echo's voice came over the communication system, crystal structure flashing with bewildered terror. "Standard quantum exposure suit," Rodriguez replied, tapping the side of her helmet. "We developed these after the Chicago quantum accident. That was much worse than this. At least this reactor isn't trying to turn people into alternate versions of themselves." The aliens' translators struggled with that statement for several minutes. As the 6th hour approached, the impossible was becoming routine. The planet's quantum cascade reaction was being systematically shut down by 50 humans, using techniques that alien science couldn't even classify as theoretical. Nuclear weapons were repairing space-time. Modified bacteria were controlling planetary weather systems. Gravity wells were being navigated like minor traffic obstacles. Parker stood in the colony's emergency command center, which had been partially destroyed and was now operating at 17% normal power. He was coordinating the operation while simultaneously reading reports from Earth about 12 other crisis situations happening simultaneously. "Anna, What's our timeline looking like? He asked while reviewing a message about sentient tornadoes attacking the Mars colonies. Reactor stabilization is at 80%. Rodriguez reported from inside a quantum field that was converting matter into pure mathematics. I should have the cascade reaction completely stopped within the hour. The dimensional rifts are sealed, core pressure is stable, and the reality distortions are diminishing. Frank, how are those quantum tiers? Last 3 just got sealed, Turner replied, loading more nuclear charges with the casual efficiency of someone stocking a vending machine. I've got standby charges positioned in case any new ones open up, but I think we've got this contained. Lisa, atmospheric status. Weather systems are stabilizing nicely, Wong reported from inside a tornado that was dissolving around her as her bacteria worked. Air quality should be back to normal standards within 2 hours. The hurricane season should be over by dinner time. Alex, evacuation support? All alien personnel have been retrieved from the danger zones, Chen confirmed while performing a barrel roll through a gravity field that was strong enough to bend light. The evacuation fleet is maintaining safe distance and their casualties have stopped increasing. Parker checked his watch and smiled. Right on schedule. We should have this whole situation resolved before lunch, just like I told the Galactic Council. In the observation ships, 3 alien species tried to process what they had witnessed. 50 humans had taken a crisis that threatened multiple star systems and treated it like routine maintenance. They had used nuclear weapons to repair reality, sent bacteria to control weather, and flown through impossible conditions while discussing the situation in terms normally reserved for fixing household appliances. How? Bright Echo whispered, her crystal structure dimmed to its lowest possible setting. The Drift Collective had condensed into a tight ball of confusion. This should not be possible. 900's clicking had slowed to a stunned rhythm. They speak of worse disasters on their homeworld. What kind of planet creates beings like this? As if in answer to her question, Parker's radio crackled with an incoming message from Earth. Emergency Response Team Alpha, this is Earth Control. We've got a situation developing near the Centauri system. Ancient alien machinery has awakened and is rewriting local physics. Can you respond after you finish up there? Parker sighed and checked his schedule. Copy that, Earth Control. We should be done here in about an hour. Tell the Centauri team we'll be there by 1400 hours. Just another Tuesday for the humans. Just another impossibility made routine. Everything went sideways at exactly 11:47 a.m. Earth Standard Time. Rodriguez was deep inside the main quantum reactor, celebrating the successful stabilization of the cascade reaction when her instruments started showing readings that made no sense. Time itself was becoming unstable around the facility, creating temporal distortions that aged metal to rust in seconds, while making other materials revert to their component atoms. Parker, she called over the radio, we've got a bigger problem than I thought. The quantum cascade didn't just destabilize the reactors, it punched holes through time itself. I'm reading temporal fractures spreading across the entire colony. Through the facility's windows, she could see the nightmare unfolding. Parts of the colony were aging rapidly, buildings crumbling to dust in minutes. Other sections were reversing in time, showing glimpses of the mining operation as it had existed years ago. Some areas flickered between different temporal states, creating a kaleidoscope of past, present, and future. How big of a problem are we talking about? Parker asked while outside his ship chunks of space-time began folding in on themselves. Remember the Bermuda Triangle Research Station incident? Rodriguez replied, watching a section of the colony phase through 7 different time periods in the span of 30 seconds. Parker whistled low. That was classified as a Class 9 temporal emergency. Are you telling me this is worse? Much worse. The temporal distortions are creating micro-wormholes to parallel dimensions. I'm getting readings from at least 40 different alternate realities, and some of them are starting to bleed through. As if summoned by her words, alternate versions of the colony began phasing in and out of existence. In one dimension, the mining operation had never existed, showing only empty wasteland. In another, the entire planet was covered in crystalline structures built by an unknown civilization. A third reality showed the colony during an active alien invasion, with laser fire lighting up the sky. The alien observers completely lost what remained of their composure. Bright Echo's crystal structure began fracturing from stress, sending rainbow patterns of panic across her surface. This is beyond crisis. This is the end of everything. Temporal paradoxes will destroy not just this system, but potentially the entire galactic cluster. The Drift Collective was dispersing uncontrollably, its gaseous form unable to maintain cohesion in the face of existential terror. Reality itself is breaking down. No species has ever survived temporal cascade failures of this magnitude. 900's clicking had become a rapid staccato of pure panic. Our legends speak of such disasters. When time breaks, all things end. We must flee beyond the galactic rim. Parker, meanwhile, was calmly typing on his tablet. Anna, I'm calling in Kevin from Temporal Engineering. He should be able to sort this out. Dr. Walsh? Rodriguez asked, ducking as a piece of the reactor facility phased through her from an alternate timeline, where it had been built 50 meters to the left. Isn't he handling the solar flare situation near Proxima? That wrapped up an hour ago. He's probably bored by now anyway. 20 minutes later, Dr. Kevin Walsh arrived in a modified transport that looked like it had been assembled from spare parts in someone's garage. He emerged carrying a toolbox that appeared to contain items from several different centuries, possibly several different realities. Sorry I'm late, Walsh said, checking his watch which displayed time in formats that hadn't been invented yet. Had to drop my daughter off at soccer practice. Traffic was terrible. Some idiot opened a wormhole in the middle of the interstate again. He surveyed the temporal chaos with the expression of a plumber looking at a backed-up drain. Parts of the colony were now cycling through time periods at random intervals. Medieval versions of the buildings appeared and disappeared alongside futuristic constructions that defied known architecture. The very air shimmered with temporal distortions that made reality hiccup. Standard temporal cascade failure, Walsh diagnosed, pulling out instruments that hummed with technology beyond current galactic understanding. Looks like someone tried to use quantum containment in a high temporal stress environment without proper chronometer shielding. Basic engineering mistake. Can you fix it? Parker asked. Sure, just need to anchor the primary timeline and collapse the parallel intrusions. Should take about an hour, maybe 2 if I run into any paradox loops. Walsh began setting up equipment that looked like it had been built by time travelers with a sense of humor. This is actually easier than the situation we had in Detroit last month. What happened in Detroit? Rodriguez asked. Someone accidentally created a time loop that made the entire city experience the same Tuesday for 6 weeks. That was tricky, had to convince. The loop that Wednesday was a better idea. The alien observers watched in horror as Walsh began working inside temporal distortions that should have torn his atoms apart and scattered them across multiple timelines. He moved through fractures in time itself like he was walking through morning fog, adjusting equipment with casual precision. This is impossible, Bright Echo whispered, her crystal structure now showing stress fractures that created tiny rainbows of light. No being can survive direct exposure to temporal paradoxes. Walsh paused in his work to answer. Oh, we deal with this kind of thing all the time on Earth. Our planet sits on what we call a temporal stress point. Time moves differently in about 40 different locations. We've got research stations in most of them. He returned to his work, installing devices that began stabilizing the temporal fractures one by one. Reality stopped hiccuping around the equipment, and the phantom buildings from alternate timelines began fading away. The trick, Walsh explained while literally standing in 3 different time periods simultaneously, is not to fight the temporal distortions. You have to convince them to stabilize themselves. Time likes consistency. It just sometimes needs help figuring out which timeline should be the real one. As Walsh worked, the situation continued to escalate beyond the aliens' comprehension. The micro-wormholes were growing larger, and parallel versions of entire star systems began appearing in the sky. In one alternate reality, the planet was surrounded by a massive space fleet engaged in battle. In another, strange geometric shapes the size of moons orbited the world, pulsing with energy that made space itself ripple. Parker was now coordinating with his alternate dimension counterparts, who were dealing with similar crises in their own realities. The radio filled with voices of other versions of himself, comparing notes on temporal stabilization techniques. Parker 7 here, came a voice with a slight accent. We're seeing the same cascade pattern in our dimension. The quantum failure created resonance effects across at least 12 parallel realities. Copy that, 7, Parker replied. Parker 15, what's your status? Almost finished here. Walsh 15 says the temporal anchors should be synchronized across all affected dimensions within the hour. Just need to coordinate the stabilization sequence. The aliens realized they were listening to humans casually discussing interdimensional engineering, as if it were a conference call about quarterly reports. The casual competence was more terrifying than the crisis itself. How can you remain so calm? The Drift Collective asked, its voice barely coherent. Reality is literally breaking apart around us. Because panicking doesn't fix anything, Parker replied, while scheduling equipment transfers between parallel dimensions. Besides, Earth deals with temporal anomalies every Tuesday. We've got research stations monitoring about 60 different time distortions around our solar system. 60? 900 clicked weekly. Well, 63 as of last month. The Martian colonies accidentally created 3 new ones during their terraforming project. Parker checked his watch, which was now displaying time in 4 different dimensions simultaneously. Should have this whole situation resolved by lunchtime. Walsh's voice came over the radio, cheerful and relaxed. Temporal anchors are in place across all affected realities. Beginning synchronized stabilization sequence in 3, 2, 1, mark. Reality snapped back into focus like a rubber band released from tension. The parallel dimensions faded away. The temporal distortions collapsed and time began flowing normally again. The only evidence of the crisis was some confused-looking equipment and the fact that part of the colony was now about 6 hours younger than the rest of it. There we go, Walsh announced, packing up his tools. All stabilized. The temporal differential should even out over the next few days. Standard physics should resume normal operation by tomorrow morning. Parker checked his messages and sighed. Kevin, we've got another call coming in. Something about an ancient AI awakening near the Vega system and rewriting the laws of physics. Walsh checked his watch. Can do. But I need to pick up my daughter from soccer practice first. Think they can wait 45 minutes for the universe to be saved? While reality was busy putting itself back together around the Epsilon mining colony, Parker received a video call from Earth that perfectly illustrated why humans considered galactic catastrophes to be routine Tuesday business. Director General Maria Santos appeared on his screen, sitting in what looked like a war room crossed with a coffee shop. Behind her, dozens of humans worked at stations monitoring global emergencies with the casual efficiency of people managing a busy restaurant during lunch rush. Sam, how's the quantum cascade situation? Santos asked, while simultaneously signing papers and drinking coffee from a mug that read, Galaxy's Best Crisis Manager. Wrapped up about 20 minutes ago, Parker reported. Standard temporal fracture complications, but Kevin got it sorted. Total time from arrival to resolution 8 hours, 15 minutes. Excellent. That's under budget and ahead of schedule. Santos glanced at her screens. Listen, I know you're probably tired, but we've got a situation developing near Vega. Ancient AI, reality manipulation, the usual Tuesday afternoon nonsense. Can your team handle one more before dinner? Parker looked around at his crew. Turner was playing cards with Chen while their equipment automatically packed itself. Rodriguez was reading a novel while her systems ran self-diagnostics. Wong was cataloging the bacteria samples she'd collected from the planet's now stable atmosphere. Sure, we can handle another one, Parker said. What kind of ancient AI are we dealing with? The kind that thinks mathematics is just a suggestion, Santos replied. It's been awake for about 6 hours and has already convinced 3 planets that gravity works sideways. The locals are in full panic mode. Through the video link, Parker could see the organized chaos of Earth's emergency response center. One wall displayed a map of the galaxy with dozens of red warning lights indicating active crisis situations. Technicians moved between stations with the relaxed urgency of people who had seen it all before. Ma'am, called a technician from across the room, the Mars colonies are reporting another AI uprising. The artificial intelligences are demanding voting rights and threatening to unionize. Tell them we'll negotiate after they stop holding the water recycling systems hostage, Santos replied without looking up. And remind them that the last AI strike lasted 3 weeks and nobody on Mars had coffee the entire time. Parker watched this exchange with mild interest. Busy day on Earth? Standard Tuesday, Santos confirmed. We've got solar flares threatening the Jupiter mining stations, a rogue black hole that's eating shipping lanes near Alpha Centauri, and someone in the Orion sector accidentally awakened an ancient god that's demanding tribute in the form of pizza. Pizza? Rodriguez asked, looking up from her book. Apparently it's been asleep for 10,000 years and is really hungry. We're working with the Italian Space Authority to coordinate delivery. Santos took another sip of coffee. Oh, and the children on Luna Base are doing a science project that accidentally opened a portal to what they call the homework dimension. We've got educational materials falling from the sky across 3 systems. The alien observers, who had been listening to this conversation with growing bewilderment, finally managed to speak. Bright Echo's crystal structure was flickering with colors that indicated complete cognitive overload. Director Santos, Bright Echo transmitted weakly. Are you saying that Earth experiences multiple crisis situations of this magnitude simultaneously? Santos glanced at the alien transmission feed. Oh, hello there. Yes, we typically handle 10 to 15 impossible situations per day. It's actually been pretty quiet lately. Last week we had 27 active emergencies running at the same time. 27? The Drift Collective whispered, its gaseous form barely holding together. That was a busy week, Santos admitted. We had the usual solar disasters, 3 different AI rebellions, 2 alien invasions that turned out to be misdirected tourist groups, and someone in the Antarctic Research Station accidentally created a race of sentient penguins who declared independence and demanded representation in the United Nations. 900s? Clicking had become so rapid it sounded like static. How do you maintain sanity in the face of such constant catastrophe? Practice, Santos replied cheerfully. Also really good coffee and a comprehensive employee mental health program. Our people get 3 weeks paid vacation in dimensions where nothing exciting ever happens. On the screens behind Santos, more status updates appeared. A technician called out, "Ma'am, the sentient storm systems on Neptune are organizing into a weather union. They're demanding better working conditions and longer winter seasons. Tell them we'll consider their demands after they stop throwing ice asteroids at the shipping lanes," Santos responded. "And see if we can negotiate with their shop steward. I think it's that big cyclone near the North Pole." Parker watched this casual management of impossibility with professional admiration. "Maria, how many teams do we have deployed right now?" 47 active response teams across the galaxy," Santos replied, pulling up a holographic display. "Team Alpha 9 is handling the Vega AI situation I mentioned. Team Charlie 12 is dealing with a space-time inversion near Betelgeuse where everything is happening backwards. Team Delta 7 is managing first contact with a species that communicates entirely through interpretive dance." "Interpretive dance?" Wong asked, looking interested. "It's actually quite beautiful, but their word for hello involves 17 people and takes 45 minutes to perform properly. Diplomatic negotiations are taking forever." The video feed showed more of Earth's Crisis Management Center. Children's drawings covered one wall. Artwork from Earth's kids showing their parents at work saving the galaxy. A banner hanging from the ceiling read Day 847 without a coffee-related emergency. "Sam," Santos continued, "I need to ask you about something. The Galactic Council has been sending us requests for consultation on crisis management techniques. Apparently, other species want to know how we stay so calm during universe-ending disasters." Parker laughed. "What did you tell them?" "That we grew up on a planet where extinction-level events happen seasonally. So we developed a cultural habit of treating the impossible as routine maintenance." Santos smiled. "Though I think the real secret is that we're too stubborn to admit when something can't be fixed." Behind Santos, another technician called out updates. "Ma'am, the reality-eating entities near Proxima have learned to use email. They're sending us their demands in spreadsheet format." "That's actually an improvement," Santos noted. "At least now we can understand what they want instead of having to guess based on which parts of reality they consume." The alien observers had given up trying to process what they were hearing. Their translators were beginning to smoke from overuse, and their sanity was developing stress fractures. "This cannot be normal," Bright Echo managed to whisper. "Oh, this is a slow day," Santos assured her. "We haven't had any major dimensional intrusions, reality storms, or temporal paradoxes since this morning. It's actually been quite peaceful." Parker checked his watch. "Maria, if we take the Vega assignment, we should be done by dinner time." "Any chance of getting some real food instead of emergency rations?" "I'll have the mess hall prepare something special for you," Santos promised. "Maybe that pasta dish you like, assuming the space-time anomalies near the cafeteria have settled down." "Space-time anomalies near the cafeteria?" Rodriguez asked. "Someone tried to cook faster than light last week and created a temporal bubble where lunch happens before breakfast. We're still working out the chronological kinks." As the call ended, Parker looked around at his team and then at the alien observers. "Well, you heard the boss. One more stop, then dinner. Everyone ready to save another star system? His team responded with the weary enthusiasm of people who saved galaxies for a living and just wanted to go home to their families. It was, after all, just another Tuesday. By 6:30 p.m. Earth Standard Time, the Epsilon mining colony was not just saved. It was better than it had ever been. Rodriguez stood in the main reactor chamber, which now hummed with the kind of efficiency that made engineers weep with joy. The quantum reactors that had nearly destroyed 3 star systems were now operating at 300% normal efficiency, producing more clean energy than the colony could possibly use. The quantum cascade failure actually improved the reactor matrix, she explained to the gathered alien technicians, who were staring at readings that violated everything they thought they knew about physics. When we stabilized the cascade, we were able to tune the quantum resonance frequencies to optimal levels. These reactors should run perfectly for about 500 years. The Helix engineers, their crystal structures flickering with confused colors, tried to understand how a near catastrophe had been turned into an engineering miracle. But the quantum instabilities should have made the reactors unusable, one of them managed to transmit. That's the beauty of controlled quantum instability, Rodriguez replied, patting a reactor housing that was now producing energy levels that should have been theoretically impossible. Instead of fighting the quantum fluctuations, we convinced them to work for us. It's like turning a hurricane into a windmill. Outside, Wong's bacteria had done far more than just clean the atmosphere. The modified organisms had created a self-sustaining ecological system that was actively improving air quality while producing natural fertilizers that made the planet's soil incredibly rich. The atmospheric composition is now better than Earth normal, Wong reported to the colony's environmental staff. Oxygen at 22%, perfect humidity levels, and the bacteria are producing trace compounds that should make everyone feel more energetic and healthier. I threw in some mood-enhancing bacteria as well. You shouldn't have any more workplace depression issues. Turner's controlled nuclear explosions had done more than seal quantum tears in reality. The precision blasts had revealed massive mineral deposits deep in the planet's crust, uncovering resources worth more than the entire original mining operation. Turns out you've been sitting on the largest quantum crystal deposits in this sector, Turner told the mining supervisor while pointing to geological surveys that showed unprecedented mineral wealth. The explosions I used to fix the quantum tears also opened up perfect mining shafts. You're going to be the richest mining operation in galactic history. Even Walsh's temporal stabilization work had unexpected benefits. The time differential he'd used to fix the temporal fractures had created chronometer fields that would protect the colony from any future temporal accidents. The temporal anchors I installed should prevent any time-related disasters for the next 1,000 years, Walsh explained to the colony administrators. Plus, you've now got built-in temporal shielding that will protect you from paradoxes, time storms, and causal loops. Consider it a warranty extension. The alien observers had moved beyond bewilderment into a kind of philosophical crisis. Everything they had believed about crisis management, engineering limitations, and the nature of reality itself had been casually disproven by 50 humans in less than 12 hours. Bright Echo's crystal structure was dim and confused. They have not simply solved the crisis. They have improved everything beyond our comprehension. How is this possible? The Drift Collective had given up trying to maintain its usual form and was now just a cloud of bewildered gas. Our greatest engineering achievements pale before what they call routine maintenance. 900's clicking had slowed to a stunned rhythm. They speak of this as if it were normal. What manner of beings have we encountered? Parker was finishing his final report, typing on his tablet while his team packed equipment with the same casual efficiency they'd shown throughout the crisis. The report was refreshingly brief. Quantum cascade reaction resolved using standard containment procedures. Minor temporal complications addressed using conventional chronometer stabilization. Colony infrastructure improved beyond original specifications. No casualties. Mission time 11 hours 43 minutes. Recommend increased quantum reactor efficiency inspections for other mining operations. His radio crackled with an incoming message from Earth. Emergency Response Team Alpha, this is Earth Control. We've got 3 new situations developing. The ancient AI near Vega has learned to sing and is driving an entire species insane with its music. A black hole near Centauri is eating shipping lanes and demanding payment in precious metals. And the reality-eating entities have filed a formal complaint with the Galactic Trade Commission about working conditions in our dimension. Parker sighed and looked at his team. Well, it's still Tuesday somewhere, he said, using the traditional human response to impossible situations. Which one do you want to tackle first? I vote for the singing AI, Chen called out while loading navigation equipment. I've always wanted to meet a machine with perfect pitch. The reality eaters might be easier, Turner suggested. At least they're being polite about their dimension-destroying activities. Can we handle all three? Rodriguez asked, already calculating logistics. I mean, they're all in the same general sector. Parker consulted his schedule. Earth's holding dinner until 8 p.m. If we hustle, we can probably save 3 star systems and still make it home for Maria's pasta special. As the human ships prepared to depart, the 17 billion beings who had been evacuated from the colony were returning to find their world transformed into something beyond their wildest dreams. The mining operation that had nearly destroyed everything was now the most advanced and profitable facility in galactic history. The alien counselors gathered for an emergency session to discuss what they had witnessed. Representatives from dozens of species filled the chamber, all trying to understand how the humans had turned universal catastrophe into routine improvement. Perhaps, suggested an ancient being whose species had existed for millions of years, we should ask the humans to teach us their methods. What methods? Bright Echo replied, her crystal structure still dim with confusion. They acted as if massive crises were minor inconveniences. They used nuclear weapons to repair reality itself. They sent bacteria to control planetary weather systems. Their leader mentioned other disasters. 900 clicked slowly. Something called Hurricane Katrina, Chernobyl, the Yellowstone incident. What kind of world creates beings who consider such things normal? The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. The humans hadn't developed their crisis management abilities through advanced technology or millions of years of evolution. They had developed them through necessity, living on a planet where extinction-level disasters were apparently routine occurrences. Earth, whispered the Drift Collective, must be the most dangerous world in the galaxy. Meanwhile, Parker's team was already en route to their next impossible situation, discussing which sandwich combinations worked best during reality stabilization operations. Behind them, the Epsilon mining colony hummed with perfect efficiency, its quantum reactors producing clean energy, its atmosphere purified beyond perfection, and its temporal shielding protecting it from the accidents of time itself. The crisis that had threatened to destroy 3 star systems had been resolved in less than half a day by 50 humans who treated the salvation of civilizations as standard operating procedure. For them, preventing galactic extinction was just another item on Tuesday's to-do list, filed somewhere between lunch and the evening commute. In the vastness of space, 3 new distress signals were already broadcasting their urgent pleas for help. Ancient AIs were singing planets to madness. Black holes were demanding tribute, and reality-eating entities were filing paperwork. The galaxy faced new impossibilities, new crises that threatened the very fabric of existence itself. But it was still Tuesday for the humans, and they had work to do.